Welcome back, my silent tacticians of fate. The dark itself now kneels to your design. The world didn't change. You did. You crossed that invisible line where hesitation dies and precision becomes prophecy. The same air you once breathed like a mortal now bends around your intent. Every motion, every breath, every glance, perfectly aligned with something older than time, sharper than purpose. It wasn't madness, it was calibration. The universe was simply waiting for your signal. When you moved, reality took notes. When you spoke, the silence rearranged itself to listen. You weren't chasing control anymore. Control was already orbiting you, and that's what no one understood. They mistook your quiet for doubt, your patience for weakness, your stillness for surrender. But power doesn't shout. Power observes, collects, calculates, and then moves once. Only once. And when it moves, everything else obeys. They thought they were safe within their old rules. Those laws built on fear, noise, and imitation. They thought the game was eternal. But you didn't break their rules. You erased them. You rewrote the entire code from the inside, without permission, without warning. And now, the same system that once contained you bows in confusion, asking how it missed the birth of something it can't define. There's something terrifying about a human who starts to act like inevitability. You became that. Every step you took looked accidental, but it was precision disguised as chance. The kind of precision that makes gods nervous. The kind that doesn't react. It predicts. You see the moves before they're born, the betrayal before it's whispered, the fall before it begins. And when you act, it's not emotion. It's geometry. It's fate, written in straight lines. The truth? You never sought to rule. You simply understood. You saw that power isn't control, it's clarity. And clarity is cruel. It strips illusion from flesh, turns hierarchy into dust. When you looked at the world, you didn't see people. You saw currents, patterns, probabilities, and then you learned how to bend them. They call it luck when your timing is flawless. They call it madness when your precision terrifies them. They call it destiny when they can't explain how you keep winning. But it's none of that. It's simply you, tuned perfectly to the frequency of consequence. Every response you give, every silence you hold, is a command sent through the spine of reality itself. The moment you stopped reacting, the world started obeying. That's the shift, the silent transition from participant to principle, from pawn to pattern, from man to law. Now even the dark pauses when you walk through it, not because it fears you, but because it recognizes you. The laws that governed men crumble quietly, adjusting to your rhythm. You don't follow gravity anymore. It follows you. And somewhere, deep within the architecture of the universe, a whisper spreads like static through the void. The laws have changed. He walks. It started subtle. A stillness beneath the chaos. A quiet recalibration in your soul. You began to notice the symmetry in the noise, the hidden order in the storm. Every attack, every insult, every betrayal. They weren't accidents. They were coordinates. They were pieces of a pattern the universe used to wake you. Because the truth is, power doesn't arrive like thunder. It creeps in like awareness. You didn't gain control, you remembered it. Every failure was just a forgotten law resurfacing. Every wound was a seal breaking. And when you looked back, you realized the path wasn't random. It was scripted by you before you even arrived here. Every fall was placement. Every silence was construction. Every rejection was design. The dark didn't cage you. It refined you. They say the dark consumes. But in your case, it served. It studied you, mirrored you, sharpened you until you became the reflection it feared most. You learned to see in shadows, to listen through noise, to predict the pulse of manipulation before it spoke. You learned that the most dangerous being is not the loud one, but the one who smiles while rearranging entire outcomes with a single decision. You weren't chasing victory. You were architecting inevitability. You didn't fight the current. You reprogrammed it. Now the very forces that once resisted you bend unconsciously in your favor. Opportunities fall in sync. Enemies expose themselves. Doors unlock not because you asked, but because the energy recognizes you as the new constant. You stopped wanting things. You started commanding alignment. You stopped seeking validation. You started moving as validation itself. Every glance, every breath, every word. It echoes like a divine equation through existence. Precision became your prayer. Silence became your weapon. And the universe, your most obedient listener. That's the essence of the power they'll never grasp. They think it's about control, but you learned the truth. Power is rhythm. When you move in rhythm with the infinite, everything sinks to your pulse. Time bends. People adapt. The air changes its density when you enter a room. It's not charisma. It's not presence. It's gravity. Spiritual, psychological, metaphysical gravity. They can't measure it. They can't define it. They can only feel it. That chill when your name passes through a conversation. That pause before they speak in your presence. That subtle lowering of their tone. That's the aura of someone who rewrote the code. And when they ask, how did he do it? You won't answer, because there's no method. There's only alignment. You stopped asking for permission to exist. You became existence itself. That's the moment you awakened. Not into power, but into authorship. Because true authority doesn't shout. It doesn't force. It simply is. And now, every outcome, every reaction, every motion in this world is rewritten in your handwriting. They used to whisper that power belonged to the loud, the feared, the visible. But you proved that the true ruler walks unseen, moving like a quiet equation through chaos. The old world ran on noise, on titles, crowns, and names carved in trembling stone. But the new order, it runs on frequency, and you became the frequency no one can decode, yet everyone obeys. When the old laws trembled, they didn't collapse in fire. They disintegrated in silence. Because silence is the sound of evolution. You didn't overthrow the throne. You made it irrelevant. You didn't destroy their structure. You outgrew it. The rules they wrote to confine. Minds became obsolete the moment. You operated beyond reaction. That's how you shattered them. Not by rebellion, but by transcendence. See, power that depends on control always fears loss. But your power, it's self-sustaining. Born from inner stillness. You no longer pull strings. The strings rearrange themselves around you. You are not the actor in their script. You're the one who writes in invisible ink, the kind that burns through illusions when truth touches it. And when they noticed it, the shift, the calm, the precision, they felt something ancient inside them panic, because for the first time, they were no longer part of the pattern. The energy that once served their hierarchy now bent toward you. The laws they built to contain destiny now cracked at your vibration. You didn't rise within their order. You rose outside of it. They tried to call it luck. Coincidence? Charisma? They'll use every word except the right one. Inevitability. Because destiny doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need applause. It moves like a shadow over their systems, rewriting everything they thought was permanent. You learned what they never will. Power isn't about being followed. It's about being felt. When you move, reality adjusts its axis. When you speak, meaning rewrites itself around your tone. When you pause, silence doesn't fill the air. Anticipation does. That's the art of the awakened. You don't chase outcomes anymore. You magnetize them. You don't fight resistance. You absorb it, transmute it, weaponize it into forward motion. Every attack they made became a calibration. Every insult became a tuning fork for your evolution. You stopped being reactive because you understood. Reaction is slavery to noise. You became pure response, deliberate, surgical, divine. Your decisions now strike like symbols in a cosmic algorithm, echoing across timelines. One word from you can fracture certainty in others. One glance can rewrite their confidence into doubt. That's what happens when consciousness reaches critical mass. Reality becomes obedient. They can't name it, so they fear it. They can't measure it, so they hate it. And when they try to resist, they only accelerate their collapse. Because resistance to higher order is a form of surrender. You didn't climb to power. You became the gravitational center of it. Every plan, every scheme, every energy that once fought you now orbits you. Not because they respect you, but because they can't escape you. You've become the equation behind every outcome, the quiet force that dictates momentum without motion. And in this silence, the old gods of ego tremble. The empires of manipulation crumble. The architects of deceit lose their blueprint. Because in this new law, the one you wrote with your existence, truth itself has become sentient, and it listens to your frequency. No crown, no army, no throne, just the stillness of absolute command. That's how power looks when destiny decides to walk through you instead of around you. The age of noise has ended, and in the echo of that ending, your name will be the law that remains. They expected power to roar, to announce itself with chaos and fury. But when you arrived, it didn't roar, it hummed, a quiet resonance that cut deeper than thunder. You didn't need to conquer rooms. The rooms recalibrated the moment you entered. You didn't need to speak loud. Your silence screamed 1,000 truths they weren't ready to face. That's the difference between authority and divinity. Authority demands attention. Divinity bends attention. Every move you make now feels like inevitability in motion. Even your pauses feel choreographed by some higher architect, one that only whispers to those who have burned through illusion. You've reached that state where everything reacts to your stillness. The universe doesn't challenge you anymore. It waits for your signal. You don't lead people, you recode them. You don't command space, you reshape its meaning. And that's why the world looks at you with both fear and fascination. Because they sense what you've become, a mirror that doesn't reflect, but reveals. Once upon a time, you sought validation. Now validation seeks you. It can't find a higher authority. You've outgrown the jury of mortals. You no longer ask the question, am I enough? Because now, you are the standard by which all others measure themselves and fall short. That's what the crownless monarch is. Not a ruler by decree, but by frequency. The power isn't worn, it's radiated. And when that radiation spreads, everything false begins to decay. They wonder why your presence feels heavy, intoxicating, almost divine. It's because your energy carries the density of 1,000 unspoken victories, the kind of victories that happen in silence, where no one claps, but the universe records it all. Every eye that looks at you feels something ancient stir within them. A recognition. They don't see a person. They see a law walking. They see someone who doesn't chase outcomes because outcomes chase them. And the deeper truth, you stopped wanting to win. Now existence wins through you. This is not charisma, it's geometry, the sacred symmetry of alignment between chaos and purpose. That's why even darkness hesitates when it meets your gaze. It remembers what it used to be before it fell. Even light pauses, unsure whether to illuminate or bow. You didn't break reality's code. You spoke it fluently. That's what makes you dangerous. Not because you oppose the system, but because you understand it so deeply that you can bend it without touching it. You've mastered the art of invisible warfare, winning without fighting, influencing without effort, commanding without control. The crownless monarch doesn't sit on a throne. He is the throne. Wherever he stands, order rearranges. Wherever he breathes, the timeline reconfigures. You don't need proof of your authority anymore. The proof is how still the chaos becomes in your presence. The storms themselves go quiet, not because they fear you, but because they recognize you. You've become the equilibrium that creation itself has been trying to remember. That's what power looks like, when destiny stops whispering and starts embodying. You've stopped following signs because you became one. And now everything that once seemed random, broken, or painful reveals its pattern in your favor. You are no longer a student of destiny. You are its instructor, and even the dark now waits for your command. Not out of obedience, but out of awe, because power, when purified by purpose, no longer destroys. It defines, it creates, it becomes the silent hand behind existence itself. They used to think power was something you held, but now they understand. Real power doesn't sit in your hands. It sits in the atmosphere around you. You've become that kind of presence, the kind that bends the fabric of conversation, energy, and time. You don't interrupt people. Reality itself pauses when you begin to speak. That's what happens when power stops being external and becomes existential. You are the law that moves without motion. You are the verdict that doesn't need a courtroom. You are the silent rewrite of hierarchy itself. Every empire has always sought the throne. You became the invisible one, the throne they cannot see, yet every ruler feels. And when they feel it, their crowns grow heavy. Their words lose certainty. Their strategies begin to collapse. Because deep down, they sense there's something older, deeper, and far more aligned moving beneath it all. That something is you. You don't chase influence. You radiate inevitability. Every breath carries intent. Every silence carries weight. And those who were trained to manipulate others now find themselves manipulated by their own reflection when they stand near you. They can't explain it. They call it Asura, magnetism, luck, timing. But the truth? It's calibration. You've become calibrated to truth itself. No distortion can survive long around you. Lies suffocate, facades tremble, masks begin to melt under the gravity of your energy. Because when destiny walks into a room, illusion exits quietly. And that's what you are, destiny, walking with human eyes. Not destiny in the poetic sense, destiny in the structural sense. The force that turns potential into outcome. That's why even those who despise you secretly orbit you. They hate the way your existence reminds them of everything they denied in themselves. You are not their competition, you are their correction. And that's why your silence is so unnerving. You don't retaliate, you don't explain, you just observe. And somehow, your observation becomes judgment. Not through arrogance, but through reflection. You show people what they truly are. And most of them cannot survive that kind of clarity. The invisible throne doesn't sit above anyone. It sits within. That's why your crown is unseen but undeniable. Because it's not made of gold. It's made of gravity. You don't walk with force. You walk with command. You don't need to control anyone. You simply make their resistance irrelevant. Because the moment someone enters your field, their energy starts adjusting. Not to please you, but to match the frequency of truth itself. That's the secret of invisible rule. Not domination, but coherence. You've become so internally coherent that the external world has no choice but to align. That's why you're dangerous to systems built on illusion. You don't need to fight them. Your existence invalidates them. They wonder why your energy feels ancient. It's because you carry every version of yourself that refused to die. You walk with all your past selves as an army behind your silence. You've lost nothing. You've integrated everything. And now, when people see you, they don't see a person. They see a story that never ended. Every failure, every heartbreak, every night of despair has turned into architecture within your soul. That's why your aura feels structured, monumental. It's not confidence, it's construction. You've built yourself from memory, from pain, from unyielding purpose. You're not chasing destiny anymore. You host it. You've stopped trying to align with fate, because fate is now aligning with you. The game doesn't frighten you anymore because you've realized something profound. You are the game board, and those who thought they were players were just learning the rules you designed in silence. So when you walk, every shadow adjusts its length, every voice lowers its tone, every intention finds its shape, because the law of the invisible throne has returned, and you are its living form. You don't remind the world what power is, you redefine it, without noise, without war, just that silent, unbreakable command that everything, even darkness itself, must now wait for your next move. It began quietly, not with applause, not with lightning, not with crowns, but with silence. The kind of silence that feels aware, the kind that listens back. The moment you stopped trying to prove your worth, the shadows began to notice, and one by one, they turned toward you. Not as enemies, but as witnesses, because even the dark knows how to recognize its master. You didn't demand loyalty, you embodied it. You didn't seek attention, you commanded it through stillness, and that's what terrified them most, that your stillness spoke louder than their chaos ever could. You see, power isn't about noise, it's about presence, and your presence has become doctrine. The air shifts when you enter. Time slows. People forget their rehearsed lines because something older than memory speaks through you. The energy of inevitability. When the shadows pledged allegiance, they weren't submitting. They were recognizing. Because shadows don't kneel to weakness. They only bow to clarity. And your clarity burned through every false light the world tried to hide behind. They thought you were chasing victory, but you were rewriting its definition. You didn't want to win. You wanted to transcend. Every whisper behind your back became an unintentional prayer. Every barrier they built became your foundation. Every no they gave you echoed back as cosmic permission, because the universe doesn't listen to words. It listens to frequency, and your frequency, it's tuned to transformation. Now even the quiet corners of existence are working in your favor. The timing that once betrayed you now bends for you. The delays that used to test your patience now protect your preparation. It's not luck, it's synchronization. You've entered a rhythm only those chosen by alignment can feel. And that's when the shadows pledged, because they realized something the world didn't. You never fought them. You understood them. You never rejected darkness. You integrated it. That's the highest form of mastery. When you no longer divide yourself into light and dark, but use both as instruments of precision, you became what every false king fears: balance with teeth. There's a reason storms calm when you speak. It's because the elements remember you. Somewhere deep in creation's code, your name is etched, not as a ruler, but as a reminder that chaos itself can be engineered. You've reached the level where even silence takes your side, where luck becomes unnecessary, where destiny stops testing you and starts obeying you. They stare, trying to understand how you did it, how you walked through ruin and came out radiant, how you embraced every mistake without shame and turned it into motion. But they'll never truly know, because they still believe in coincidence. You know better. You've seen behind the curtain. You've seen how alignment looks before it manifests, how failure disguises itself as a test of readiness, how rejection is just divine redirection wearing a mask of pain. That's why nothing shocks you anymore, because you see the strings, you see the code, and every move you make rewrites it.
You are no longer reacting to the world. The world is reacting to you.
And those who once whispered against your name now whisper your name in awe, because deep down they know what's coming. They can feel the pulse of something inevitable. You don't chase destiny, you draw it closer. You don't wait for timing. You become the moment timing aligns to. And the shadows? They know their place now. They no longer follow you in fear. They follow you in faith, because even darkness understands this truth. The one who walks in harmony with both light and void is no longer a player in the game. He is the game. There comes a moment when your name stops being a sound and becomes a frequency. It carries weight, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it in silence. Now, when people say your name, something invisible stirs. A pulse moves through the air, bending reality ever so slightly, like the world itself is adjusting to make space for your presence. That's what happens when power is no longer about force. It's about gravity. You didn't push to be remembered. You simply existed with such intensity. The universe had to take notes. Every thought, every breath, every choice you made in solitude. It accumulated, and now it radiates outward, reshaping everything that once ignored you. They used to overlook you. Now they can't even breathe in your direction without feeling the shift. Because your name isn't spoken anymore. It's felt. It vibrates in their minds like a riddle they can't solve. A memory of something divine wearing human form. You see, legacy doesn't begin after death. It begins the moment you stop living for validation. The moment you decide you don't need applause, noise, or eyes to confirm what you already know. That's when the energy changes. That's when your name becomes an element, not a label. The great ones understood this. They never chased power. They became power through self-understanding. They never sought followers. Gravity doesn't chase, it pulls. And now you're the same. You don't need to announce yourself. Existence does it for you. You carry an energy that cannot be replicated. It's not confidence, it's certainty. It's the quiet knowing that comes from having lost everything false until only truth remained. That's the energy the world feels when you walk into a room. You've become a mirror for everyone else's illusions. When they meet you, they see themselves unmasked. That's why they fear you. That's why they envy you. Because you no longer fit into their definitions. You're not what the world expects. You're what the world remembers it was supposed to become. There's an aura around you now, invisible yet undeniable. It doesn't scream. It hums with purpose, and those tuned to chaos can feel it first. They sense it before they see it. The air gets heavier, colder, clearer, as if time itself pauses to acknowledge who just entered the scene. You don't move fast anymore. You move accurately. Every step is measured, intentional, designed like a signature in motion. You don't waste effort convincing anyone. You let the resonance of your being do the speaking. And in that stillness, they break, because they can't understand how someone so calm can command so much. They confuse peace for weakness until they realize your peace is weaponized. It's the calm of someone who already knows the outcome. Even the universe bends differently now. Opportunities orbit you. Energy reorganizes around you. You're no longer chasing alignment. Alignment chases you. And the name they once dismissed, now it's whispered with respect, even by those who once mocked it. Because the world finally caught up to what you've always known. You were never trying to fit in their narrative. You were authoring your own. There's a strange beauty in that. When power no longer feels like effort, but inevitability, when your essence begins to rewrite the patterns of those who cross your path. You've become a gravitational field of transformation. Everything that enters your orbit either elevates or evaporates. That's the gravity of your name now. It doesn't just move people, it moves reality itself. Because when destiny recognizes its reflection, it bows. There comes a point where even reality pauses and reconsiders its own design. Because your presence, your precision, has rewritten its rhythm. Every move you make now is not an act. It's an equation that the cosmos must solve before time continues. You don't just exist anymore. You command the pattern. You are what power becomes when it stops pretending to be loud. You are what control looks like when it no longer needs chains, and you are what destiny looks like when it finally finds its executor. They thought you were reacting. They thought your silence meant hesitation. But silence, in the hands of someone awakened, becomes the loudest order in the room. It's not stillness, it's control. Because real power never rushes, it moves with inevitability, like the tide that doesn't ask permission before swallowing the shore. Now look at them, the ones who thought they could measure your limits. They whisper, they calculate, they try to predict, but their numbers don't add up anymore. Because you're no longer inside their formula. You became the variable that breaks their entire system. You rewrote the laws they built to contain you. They built their world on logic, hierarchy, and fear. You entered with intuition, precision, and willpower. And the foundation cracked. Even the dark, once proud of its mystery, now waits in silence for your signal. It knows something the others don't. That chaos itself now obeys your structure. That you don't fight against fate anymore. You architect it. And the deeper truth, you didn't conquer by force. You conquered by alignment. You synchronized with the undercurrent, the pulse beneath creation that only a few ever hear. It whispered your name. And instead of bowing, you whispered back. That was the moment everything changed. You no longer draw from energy. Energy draws from you. You no longer seek meaning. Meaning rearranges itself around you. You no longer chase power. Power is now a shadow that follows your intent. You see, the reason even the dark bows now is because it recognizes mastery. You've done what no ruler, no empire, no tyrant ever could. You mastered the self. You faced the mirror and didn't flinch. You dissected your chaos, embraced it, and rebuilt it into clarity. That's why everything bends, because you are no longer a participant. You're a law unto yourself. You are the living paradox, calm yet unstoppable, silent yet all-commanding. You've proven that destiny is not something written. It's something rewritten by those who dare to stand still long enough to hear its code. Now every movement you make is choreography written in lightning. Every thought carries the weight of inevitability. Every word echoes through corridors unseen, striking chords in minds you've never met. That's what divine precision does. It spreads. You've become the signal that the universe now tunes itself to, the vibration that resets balance, the living testament that mastery isn't found in domination. It's found in total awareness. And now, the world no longer asks who you are. It waits to see what you'll command next, because your power is not of crown or throne. It's of truth. And truth, when fully realized, does not ask for allegiance. It demands reverence. You rewrote the laws of power. You bent the unseen to your will. And now, even the dark, that ancient silent observer, waits in stillness, whispering only one thing. What will you create next? So stand there, unmoved, untouchable, because the storm, the silence, the structure, they all answer to you now. You've crossed beyond the realm of mortals and into the dominion of mastery. You don't command armies, you command reality. And the greatest truth of all, you didn't rise above the system. You became the system's correction. That's why even the void listens. That's why the light hesitates. That's why every dimension waits. Because you rewrote the laws of power. And now, even the dark kneels in your name. Every realm has a rhythm. Every existence hums with its own pulse. But what happens when one being's rhythm becomes so precise that the universe itself tunes to it? That's you now, not chasing balance, dictating it. The world no longer moves around you. It moves through you. Every shift, every whisper of energy, every decision in the distance now bends slightly, aligning, sinking, orbiting your frequency like moons around gravity. Because power, real power, isn't loud, it's alignment. It's when every invisible law decides your motion makes more sense than its own. You've entered that state where intention replaces effort, where silence carries more consequence than chaos, and they feel it. Every soul that ever doubted you, every force that once tested your resolve, they don't understand why they flinch now when your name is spoken. But it's simple. You don't speak to be heard anymore. You speak, and the fabric of reality shifts to listen. There's no longer separation between you and the outcome. You've dissolved the illusion of distance between thought and manifestation, between dream and proof. Now time itself hesitates before moving against you, because your focus has become law. And law, once rewritten by precision, cannot return to chaos. That's why they bow without knowing why. That's why even shadows hesitate before crossing your path. They can sense it, that dangerous calm, that stillness that isn't peace, but perfect control. A silence so sharp it slices through manipulation. Every empire that rose by noise is trembling now, because you're proving that the quiet mind wins wars the loud can't even understand. You've become the anomaly in the code, the variable that reality itself couldn't predict. And now, it's learning you, because even fate studies what it cannot rule. Even destiny respects precision it cannot alter. You didn't fight for your place, you calibrated for it. You aligned every failure, every shadow, every scar into a single frequency of inevitability. And now, inevitability wears your name. So when the world asks why everything bends around your presence, tell them this: power isn't taken, it's remembered. You simply remembered what you always were, and that memory, that awakening, has become the most dangerous thing in existence. Now the universe itself is listening for your next word, because when you speak, even silence must obey. There was never a throne waiting for you. You built one, from ashes, echoes, and precision. You turned every betrayal into blueprint, every wound into architecture, and now that structure stands taller than empires ever dreamed. Not because it was constructed with stone, but because it was carved with will. You've become something rarer than power. You've become presence, a presence that doesn't command attention. It pulls gravity, a presence that doesn't demand loyalty. It rewrites faith. When you walk, the air bends. When you pause, time waits for permission. They call it madness, this level of control. They don't understand that madness is what power looks like before translation. They don't understand that mastery is chaos, disciplined into rhythm. That's what you did. You harmonized the storm. You took every contradiction, pain and pride, love and rage, silence and chaos, and fused them into equilibrium. And equilibrium, once mastered, doesn't bow. It rules. That's why even the dark kneels, not from fear, but from recognition, because the dark understands creation better than light does. It knows when something eternal has awakened. And that's you, the living paradox, unmoved but unstoppable, silent but seismic, invisible but inescapable. You didn't conquer by defiance. You conquered by inevitability. Your precision became prophecy. Your stillness became command. Your discipline became dominion. Now even the gods of chaos whisper your name not as challenge, but as reference. The game is over, not because you won, but because you became the rulebook itself. So let them bow, let them whisper, let them rewrite their stories to fit your legend. Because the law you wrote, the one carved into the unseen, cannot be erased. You rewrote the laws of power. You taught the cosmos obedience. And now, even the dark itself waits in reverent silence for your next decree. Because you are not destiny's child anymore. You are destiny's teacher. And when you move again, it won't be war, it will be creation.